Zara Chen walked into the strategy hall of the Galactic Military Academy. The massive room buzzed with quiet conversations between cadets from different worlds. She took her usual seat in the middle section, careful not to draw attention to herself. Around her sat beings she had learned to call friends over the past 3 years. There was Vex High, whose long body curved around his chair like a giant centipede. Next to him sat Krill, a crystalline whose body looked like living diamond. Behind them, the massive form of Thok filled 2 seats, his rocky skin marking him as one of the stone people from the Outer Rim. Professor Kethvar entered the hall with his usual dramatic flair. The Zephyrian's 6 arms moved independently as he set up the day's lesson. His purple skin shifted color slightly, showing he was excited about something. Zara had learned to read these signs during her time at the academy. Today we study the most challenging military problem in galactic history, the professor announced. His voice carried easily through the hall's acoustic design. Prepare yourselves for what many consider impossible. The lights dimmed and a holographic display filled the center of the room. A small planet appeared, spinning slowly. Its blue oceans and green land masses looked peaceful from space. White clouds swirled across its surface. To Zara, it was the most beautiful sight in the galaxy. To everyone else, it was just another world. This planet has broken every invasion force sent against it, Professor Kethvar continued. No military strategist has ever solved the puzzle it presents. The species that lives here should be easy to conquer. They have no faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are primitive compared to galactic standard. They fight among themselves constantly, yet they remain unconquered. A Veltar cadet raised his clawed hand. Professor, what makes them so difficult? Surely superior technology would overcome any resistance. The professor's skin shifted to a darker purple, indicating amusement. That is what every general has thought. Let me show you why they were wrong. The hologram zoomed in on the planet's surface. Cities spread across the continents like glowing webs. Ships moved across the oceans. Vehicles traveled along roads that connected every settlement. It looked like any developing civilization. The inhabitants call themselves humans, Professor Kethvar explained. They evolved as persistence hunters on a world that tried to kill them every day. Their planet has weather that can destroy cities. The ground shakes and splits open. Mountains explode without warning. Diseases jump between species constantly. Most worlds like this never develop intelligent life. Humans not only survived but learned to fight everything. Zara felt her heart racing. She watched images of Earth flash across the display. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, floods. The professor was right about Earth being dangerous. She remembered news reports about natural disasters throughout her childhood. But she also remembered how people came together to help each other during those times. Here is the most disturbing part, the professor continued. Humans wage war constantly. They have fought thousands of conflicts throughout their recorded history. They have weapons that can destroy their entire planet. They have used diseases as weapons. They have burned their own forests and poisoned their own water to deny resources to enemies. The display showed historical battles from Earth. Ancient armies clashing with swords and spears. Ships firing cannons across oceans. Planes dropping bombs from the sky. Tanks rolling across battlefields. Each image made Zara want to sink lower in her seat. Yet when faced with external threats, they unite instantly, Professor Kethvar said. Every simulation shows the same result. The moment an invasion force reveals itself, human factions stop fighting each other and turn all their violence toward the invaders. A Saurian cadet hissed a question. What about their technology? Surely they cannot compete with proper military equipment. Their technology is crude but effective, the professor replied. They still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. But they use them very well. More importantly, they adapt extremely quickly. Give a human a new weapon, and within days they will find 3 ways to use it that its creators never imagined. The hologram showed human soldiers in different environments. Desert fighters wearing cloth wrappings, jungle warriors painted in green, Arctic troops in white gear, mountain climbers scaling impossible cliffs, deep sea divers working in crushing darkness. Humans can fight anywhere, Professor Kethvar explained. They adapt to any environment within a single generation. They eat almost anything. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They heal from wounds and return to battle. They never surrender when they believe they are fighting for their survival. Krill's crystal body chimed softly as he spoke. Professor, surely their primitive nature means they cannot coordinate large-scale resistance. Another common mistake, the professor said. Humans excel at coordination. They have languages that let them share complex ideas quickly. They create command structures that function even when leaders are killed. They train ordinary citizens to become soldiers in weeks. They turn their entire civilization into a war machine when threatened. The display showed human cities transforming, factories that made cars suddenly producing tanks, scientists who studied diseases creating new weapons, children learning to fight alongside adults, entire populations moving underground to continue resistance. Every invasion strategy attempted has failed for the same reason. Professor HFY continued. Military planners think like military planners. They target obvious objectives: government buildings, military bases, industrial centers. Humans simply abandon these targets and fight from everywhere else. Zara remembered stories her grandfather told about the Second World War, how ordinary people became resistance fighters, how children carried messages between safe houses, how grandmothers hid weapons in their gardens. The professor was describing her own species, but he made them sound like monsters. Your assignment is to develop a successful invasion strategy for this world, Professor HFY announced. You have 2 weeks to prepare your presentations. Remember, in 200 years of this exercise, no cadet has ever created a plan that would work. The death world has defeated our finest strategic minds. Students immediately began forming groups and discussing approaches. Zara heard fragments of conversation around her, talk of orbital bombardment and siege tactics, plans to target infrastructure and leadership, all the standard approaches that had failed before. Want to work together? Vexai asked, turning his serpentine head toward her. You always have interesting ideas about human psychology. Zara forced herself to smile. I need to think about this alone first. Can we talk tomorrow? Of course, Vexai replied. This assignment requires careful thought. As other students filed out of the hall, Zara remained in her seat. She stared at the holographic Earth still rotating in the center of the room. Home. The word echoed in her mind. She had been away for 3 years, but Earth was still home. The professor's description was accurate but incomplete. Yes, humans fought constantly. Yes, they were violent and adaptable and dangerous. But they were also capable of incredible kindness. They created art and music and poetry. They cared for their sick and elderly. They sacrificed their lives to save strangers. Zara knew something the professor did not mention. Something that made his assignment terrifying instead of just difficult. She knew exactly how to defeat humanity. Her 3 years at the academy had taught her military strategy and alien psychology. But her 21 years as a human had taught her something more valuable. She knew how humans thought. She knew what they feared most. She knew their weaknesses better than any galactic strategist could learn from studying reports and battle footage, and that knowledge felt like a weapon pointed at her own heart. As the hologram faded and the hall lights returned to normal, Zara made a decision that would change everything. She would complete this assignment. She would solve the puzzle that had stumped military minds for 2 centuries. But first, she had to decide what to do with the solution. Zara returned to her dormitory with her mind spinning. The corridor felt longer than usual as she walked past rooms filled with alien cadets discussing the assignment. Through thin walls, she heard excited voices planning their approaches to the impossible Earth problem. None of them understood what they were really talking about. Her room was small but comfortable. The academy provided standard accommodations for all species, with adjustable gravity and atmosphere controls. Zara had set hers to Earth normal, claiming it helped her study alien environments better. It was just one of many small lies that had kept her secret safe. She activated her personal terminal and began searching through the academy's restricted files. Her high academic standing gave her access to detailed records about previous attempts to solve the Earth problem. What she found made her stomach turn. The first invasion plan dated back 150 years. The hegemony's best generals had spent months studying Earth's defenses. Their strategy was simple and brutal. Orbital bombardment of major cities, followed by ground invasion to secure resources. The simulation results were clear. Total human casualties would exceed 2 billion people. The plan failed during testing. War game computers showed human survivors retreating to underground bunkers in rural areas. They would wage guerrilla warfare for generations. The cost of controlling Earth would be higher than its value. The hegemony marked the planet as economically non-viable for conquest. Zara scrolled through dozens of similar plans. Each one was more sophisticated than the last. Each one failed for the same basic reason. Military strategists thought like military strategists. They saw targets and objectives and victory conditions. They did not understand the human soul. The collective's war AI had produced the most detailed analysis. It cataloged every military base, government facility, and industrial center on Earth. It calculated exact force requirements for overwhelming human defenses. It planned timetables down to the minute. The AI was certain of victory, but the AI could not understand why humans would keep fighting after their formal military was destroyed. It could not predict how quickly civilians would become soldiers. It could not calculate the effect of human anger on their tactical decisions. The simulation crashed after running for 6 months of projected occupation, unable to process the variables. Zara found herself reading battle reports from Earth's own history. The Academy's files contained detailed studies of human conflicts, analyzed by alien military scholars trying to understand human behavior. She read about Vietnam, where a technologically superior force was defeated by determination and local knowledge. She read about Afghanistan, where multiple empires learned that occupying human territory was nearly impossible. The pattern was always the same. Humans could be defeated in battles, but they would not stay defeated. They adapted to new tactics faster than invaders could implement them. They turned every piece of technology into a weapon. They fought with whatever they could find, wherever they could hide. Vexhai entered their shared room as Zara was reading about the Winter War. The Veltars, multiple legs moved silently across the floor as he settled into his resting position. Still, studying the assignment? He asked, his translator making his voice sound concerned. You seem troubled by it. Zara minimized her display quickly. It's a complex problem. I want to understand all the variables. No one expects us to actually solve it, Vexhai said gently. The professors use this assignment to teach strategic thinking. The process matters more than the result. What if someone could solve it? Zara asked carefully. What if there was a way to successfully invade Earth? Vexhai's body shifted, a sign of surprise among his species. That would be historically significant. Such a strategy would prove that no world is truly unconquerable. It would change galactic military doctrine. Zara nodded and turned back to her terminal, but she was not reading military reports anymore. Instead, she accessed news feeds from Earth. The Academy's communications array could receive public broadcasts from across the galaxy. She told herself she was gathering intelligence. Really, she was desperately homesick. The news was typical for Earth. Political arguments between nations, economic troubles in some regions, environmental concerns about climate change, a few regional conflicts that would not even register on the galactic scale. To alien observers, it would look like a world in constant turmoil. But Zara saw something different. She saw a species trying to solve its problems. Scientists working together across national boundaries to study climate change. Doctors sharing information to fight diseases. Engineers cooperating on space exploration projects. Yes, humans argued and fought, but they also helped each other more than any alien strategist realized. She found a news report about disaster relief efforts after an earthquake. Volunteers from around the world rushing to help people they had never met. Ordinary citizens donating money and supplies to strangers in need. It was the kind of cooperation that no military analysis captured. Another report showed scientists from different countries working together on a space station. They were trying to learn more about the universe, hoping to make contact with alien civilizations. Zara almost laughed at the irony. Humans were trying to reach out to aliens while aliens were planning to destroy them. Over the next few days, Zara attended classes and listened to her fellow cadets discuss their strategies. She heard the same mistakes being repeated over and over. Plans focused on destroying human infrastructure. Schemes to target their governments and military leaders. Strategies based on the assumption that humans would surrender when faced with overwhelming force. All wrong. Completely, catastrophically wrong. But as Zara listened to these flawed plans, she began to understand something terrible. She could see exactly why they would fail. More importantly, she was starting to see how they could be fixed. The key was not thinking like a military strategist. The key was thinking like a human, understanding what humans really valued, knowing what would truly break their will to resist. Zara began writing notes late at night when Vexhai was asleep. She filled pages with observations about human psychology and culture. She identified weaknesses that no alien analyst had ever noticed. She found pressure points that could be exploited without firing a single shot. The strategy that emerged from her research was elegant and horrible. It would not require massive fleets or orbital bombardment. It would not need armies of occupation or decades of warfare. It would turn humanity's greatest strength against itself. But writing the strategy felt like planning the murder of her own family. Every word was a betrayal of everything she had grown up believing about human nature. Yet she could not stop herself from completing it. The assignment was due in 1 week. Around her, other cadets were finishing their conventional military plans. They would present orbital strikes and ground invasions and siege tactics. They would fail the assignment as intended. Zara would not fail. She would solve the puzzle that had stumped the galaxy's finest military minds. She would hand her professors a strategy that could actually destroy Earth. And she had no idea what she would do with that terrible knowledge. The presentation hall buzzed with nervous energy as cadets prepared for the most important assignment of their academy careers. Zara sat in the waiting area, watching her classmates review their notes one final time. Some looked confident. Others appeared worried about failing such a historically difficult challenge. None of them suspected that one of their own had actually solved the puzzle. Professor Kethvar called the first presenter to the stage. Cadet Thok stomped forward on his massive stone legs, his presentation materials floating beside him on an anti-gravity platform. The rocky being's plan was exactly what Zara expected from his species. Direct orbital assault, Thok announced in his rumbling voice. Target population centers with kinetic bombardment. Destroy their infrastructure completely. Force surrender through overwhelming destruction. The holographic display showed Thok's strategy in detail. Hundreds of ships dropping tungsten rods from space. Major cities disappearing in massive explosions. Industrial centers reduced to rubble. It was the kind of brute force approach that his warrior culture favored. Professor Kethavar listened patiently, then began his critique. Cadet Thok, your strategy assumes humans will surrender when their cities are destroyed. What does their history suggest about this assumption? Thok's stone face could not show expression, but his voice carried confusion. Surely they would see the futility of resistance after such a demonstration of power. Let me show you what happened when humans faced similar destruction, the professor said. The display changed to show images from Earth's Second World War. Cities bombed to rubble, yet their populations continued fighting. Humans become more determined to resist when their homes are destroyed, not less. Your strategy would unite them against you. Thok returned to his seat, clearly frustrated. One by one, other cadets presented their plans. Each followed predictable patterns based on their species' military traditions. Krill the Crystalline proposed precision strikes against command centers. His crystal body chimed melodically as he explained how destroying human leadership would create chaos and prevent coordinated resistance. Professor Kethavar showed him examples of human resistance movements that operated without central command. Leaderless groups that fought effectively using local initiative and shared ideology. A Saurian cadet suggested biological warfare, using diseases that would weaken human populations before invasion. The professor explained how humans had survived countless plagues throughout their history, how they developed resistance to diseases faster than any other known species, how they would likely weaponize any biological agent and use it against the invaders. The pattern continued through a dozen presentations. Conventional military thinking met unconventional human responses. Each strategy failed for the same basic reason. Alien minds could not truly understand human psychology. Zara felt sick as she watched her friends' plans being dismantled. They were good people trying to solve an academic problem. They did not know they were planning the destruction of her entire species. They certainly did not know that one of their classmates could actually make their plans work. Finally, Professor Kethvar called her name. Cadet Chen, please present your strategy. Zara walked to the presentation platform on unsteady legs. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Behind her biomask, sweat beaded on her forehead. She activated her display and faced the audience. Distinguished professors and fellow cadets, she began, grateful that her voice sounded steadier than she felt. I believe every previous strategy has failed because they approach this as a conventional military problem. But Earth cannot be conquered through military means alone. Murmurs rippled through the audience. This was already different from the standard approaches they had heard. Humans are not defeated by destroying their capabilities, Zara continued. They are defeated by breaking their unity. Every successful resistance in human history succeeded because humans set aside their differences to fight together. Break that cooperation, and you break their ability to resist. Professor Kethvar leaned forward, his purple skin shifting to indicate interest. Explain this approach, Cadet Chen. Zara took a deep breath and activated the first part of her presentation. Instead of showing military targets, her display highlighted social and cultural structures. Phase 1 requires long-term intelligence gathering and infiltration. Not military reconnaissance, but cultural analysis, understanding how human societies function and where their natural fault lines exist. The display showed maps of Earth with overlay data about different cultures, religions, and political systems. It highlighted areas where humans already disagreed with each other. Economic inequality between regions, religious differences that created tension, political ideologies that caused conflict. Humans are naturally tribal, Zara explained, each word feeling like a knife in her chest. They form groups based on shared identity and compete with other groups for resources and status. Their history is full of wars between different human factions. The key is amplifying these existing divisions. A Veltar cadet raised his clawed hand. How would you accomplish this amplification? Zara activated the next section of her presentation. Phase 2 involves cultural manipulation over multiple generations. Insert deep cover operatives into their information networks. Social media, news organizations, educational institutions. Not to spread alien propaganda, but to encourage extreme versions of existing human beliefs. The display showed communication networks across Earth, social media platforms that connected billions of humans, news services that shaped public opinion, universities that trained future leaders, all potential channels for subtle influence. Humans already distrust each other over many issues, Zara continued. Religion, politics, economics, social policies. The goal is not to create new conflicts, but to make existing conflicts more intense, make compromise seem like betrayal, make cooperation with different groups seem impossible. Professor Kethvar was taking detailed notes. Several other professors had stopped their usual side conversations to focus on her presentation. Zara could see she had their complete attention. This phase takes approximately 50 Earth years, she said. During this time, operatives gradually introduce ideas that promote division while disguising them as solutions to human problems. Economic policies that benefit some groups while harming others. Political movements that define themselves by opposition to other humans. Social changes that break down traditional support networks. The display showed potential pressure points in human society. Immigration policies that could be pushed to extremes. Economic systems that could be manipulated to increase inequality. Environmental problems that could be used to create scarcity and competition. Phase 3 triggers the breakdown, Zara announced, her voice becoming clinical to hide her emotional pain. Simultaneous manufactured crises designed to overwhelm human cooperation mechanisms. Food shortages in some regions while others have surplus but prevent sharing through artificial political barriers. Pandemic diseases while simultaneously destroying trust in medical institutions. Refugee crises while promoting fear of outsiders. The room had become completely silent. Even the usual whispered translations had stopped. Every being in the hall was focused on her presentation. By this point, human civilization begins fragmenting, Zara continued. Their natural response to external threats becomes impossible because they no longer trust each other enough to cooperate. Their military forces become divided between competing factions. Their industrial capacity is disrupted by internal conflict. Most importantly, their will to unite against external enemies is broken. Professor Kethvar spoke carefully. And Phase 4, Cadet Chen? Zara felt tears threatening behind her biomask. Phase 4 is simply cleanup. The invasion fleet reveals itself to a world already in chaos. Human factions are too busy fighting each other to mount effective resistance. Many groups actually welcome alien intervention, hoping it will give them advantage over their human enemies. What should be humanity's finest hour becomes their final defeat. The presentation hall erupted in discussion. Cadets turned to each other with excitement and amazement. Professors leaned together, comparing notes and asking questions. Everyone seemed to realize they had witnessed something unprecedented, but Zara could barely hear the noise around her. She stood at the presentation platform, staring at her own analysis of how to destroy everything she had ever loved. She had solved the impossible problem. She had created a strategy that could actually work. And in that moment of triumph, she realized she had made the most terrible mistake of her life. The questions came fast and eager as professors and cadets surrounded Zara after her presentation. Everyone wanted to understand how she had developed such a sophisticated analysis of human psychology. She answered carefully, claiming extensive study of historical records and behavioral databases. Each lie came easier than the last, but felt heavier on her conscience. Professor Kethavar dismissed the class early, asking Zara to remain behind. As other cadets filed out, still discussing her revolutionary approach, she found herself alone with the professor who had become her mentor over 3 years at the academy. "Remarkable work, Cadet Chen," he said, his 6 arms organizing presentation materials while his purple skin showed pleased satisfaction. "In 2 centuries of this assignment, no student has demonstrated such intuitive understanding of human nature. Where did you develop these insights?" Zara kept her expression neutral despite her racing heart. "I spent extra time studying their communication networks, Professor. Their social media and news broadcasts reveal psychological patterns that military reports miss." "Indeed," Professor Kethavar mused. "Your approach treats warfare as a social phenomenon rather than a purely military one. Have you considered specializing in psychological operations?" The suggestion hit Zara like a physical blow. A career spent learning to manipulate and destroy other species psychologically, using her understanding of human nature as a weapon against humanity and other worlds. "I have not decided on my specialization yet, sir." "Think about it," the professor encouraged. "Your presentation will be forwarded to Strategic Command. This kind of analysis could revolutionize galactic military doctrine." As Zara walked back to her dormitory, those words echoed in her mind. Revolutionize military doctrine. Her strategy would not just be used against Earth. It would become a template for conquering any world through psychological manipulation rather than military force. She had not just betrayed humanity. She had potentially doomed countless other species. That evening, she sat in her room accessing classified databases with her new security clearance. Professor Kethavar had recommended her for advanced access based on her presentation. She used it to research the Academy's real purpose and the military forces behind it. What she found made her earlier fears seem small by comparison. The Galactic Military Academy was not just a training institution. It was a research center developing conquest strategies for the Great Expansion. Plans were already in motion to contact and evaluate hundreds of worlds with developing civilizations. Earth was just one target among many. Zara read files about other species that had been studied and conquered. The Altarians, who valued honor above survival, defeated when their leaders were challenged to impossible duels. The Collective, a hive mind species broken when their central nodes were corrupted with false information. The Seraphim, peaceful traders who surrendered rather than fight after their economic systems were destroyed. Each conquest followed the same pattern. Years of study to identify psychological weaknesses. Careful manipulation to exploit those weaknesses. Final invasion when resistance became impossible. The galaxy was full of species that had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by superior understanding of their own nature. And now she had provided the template for humanity's destruction. Vex High returned to their room late that night, his serpentine body coiling with excitement. "The entire Academy is talking about your presentation," he said. "Some cadets think you should receive the Vorthan Prize for Strategic Innovation." "It was just an academic exercise," Zara said weakly. "Perhaps," Vex High replied, settling into his resting position. "But practical applications are already being discussed. I heard Senior Commander Velthak mention implementation timelines." Zara felt cold despite her room's comfortable temperature. "Implementation? Your strategy is being evaluated for actual use," Vex High explained. "If Strategic Command approves it, Earth could be the test case for psychological conquest methods. Think of the significance, Zara. You might have solved the greatest strategic puzzle in galactic history." After Vex High fell asleep, Zara accessed her personal files and began writing. Not an academic paper or military report, but a letter she would never be able to send. A confession to her parents, her friends, everyone on Earth who would suffer because of her brilliant strategy. She wrote about growing up in Vancouver, dreaming of space exploration and contact with alien civilizations. about winning the secret scholarship program that brought exceptional humans to study at galactic institutions, about 3 years of hiding her identity while learning everything she could about alien technology and culture. The scholarship program was supposed to prepare humanity for eventual contact with galactic civilization, humans chosen for their intelligence and adaptability, sent to learn and return with knowledge that would help Earth join the galactic community as equals. Instead, Zara had become the architect of humanity's destruction. She wrote about watching her classmates plan the bombing of Earth's cities, not knowing that one of their targets might be her childhood home, about listening to casual discussions of human extermination while pretending to be just another alien cadet interested in conquest strategies. The worst part was how easy it had been. Her professors and classmates were not evil beings plotting genocide. They were military professionals analyzing a strategic problem. To them, Earth was just another world to be conquered for resources and territory. Humans were just another species to be studied and defeated. They could not understand that every casualty statistic represented someone's family. Every destroyed city contained homes where children played and families gathered for dinner. Every broken resistance network meant communities torn apart and cultures lost forever. But Zara understood all of this, and she had still given them the tools to make it happen. Over the following days, she watched her strategy move through official channels with terrifying efficiency. Senior officers requested detailed briefings. Strategic planners began developing operational timelines. Intelligence services started identifying potential infiltration targets. Her brilliant academic exercise was becoming a real plan to destroy her own species. Professor Kethvar called her to his office 3 days after her presentation. His purple skin showed colors she had learned to associate with serious excitement. Cadet Chen, I have remarkable news. Strategic Command has approved your strategy for operational development. You are being assigned to the Earth Infiltration Project as Senior Psychological Analyst. Zara managed to keep her voice steady. I am honored, Professor. This assignment will make your career, he continued. First human contact will use your methodology. If successful, psychological conquest will become standard doctrine for all future expansion operations. You will be remembered as the strategist who changed galactic warfare forever. As she left the professor's office, Zara realized she had reached a decision point that would define the rest of her life. She could continue her charade, accept the assignment and watch her strategy destroy Earth from the inside, or she could find some way to warn humanity about what was coming. Both choices would make her a traitor. The question was which species she would betray. That night, as Vexhai slept beside her, Zara stared at the ceiling and made her choice. She thought about her parents who had been so proud when she was selected for the scholarship program. About her little brother, who wanted to be an astronaut and explore the galaxy. About her friends from university, who were probably wondering why she had never returned from her supposed research project. She thought about Earth itself, the blue oceans and green forests that had seemed so beautiful in Professor Kethvar's holographic display. The cities where millions of people lived and worked and loved, not knowing that their destruction was being planned by one of their own. Zara had spent 3 years learning to think like a galactic strategist. But she was still human, and humans protected their families, even when the cost was everything they had worked to achieve. She reached for her personal communicator and began composing a message that would change everything. 3 weeks passed before Zara received the official notification she had been dreading. The message appeared on her personal terminal during morning study period, marked with the highest classification seals of Strategic Command. Cadet Chen, the text read, your psychological conquest strategy has been approved for implementation. Operation Mindbreak will commence with Phase 1 infiltration within 6 standard months. You are hereby assigned as Chief Psychological Analyst effective immediately upon graduation. Report to Intelligence Division for briefing and preparation. Zara stared at the screen until the words blurred together. Operation Mindbreak. They had given her strategy a name and a schedule. In 6 months, the first deep cover operatives would begin their insertion into Earth's communication networks. The 50-year timeline she had outlined would begin ticking toward humanity's destruction. Around her in the study hall, other cadets worked quietly on their assignments. Normal academic problems about supply logistics and fleet movements. None of them knew that one of their classmates had just received orders to help destroy an entire world. That afternoon, Professor Kethvar pulled her aside after strategy class. "Congratulations, Zara. This assignment represents unprecedented trust from Strategic Command. You will be working directly with the most sensitive intelligence operations in the galaxy." "Thank you, Professor," Zara managed to say. "There is one additional honor," he continued, his skin shifting to pleased purple. "You have been selected to lead the initial infiltration team personally. Your understanding of human psychology makes you invaluable for establishing operational procedures." The words hit Zara like physical blows. They did not just want her to plan humanity's destruction from a distance. They wanted her to return to Earth as a spy, to walk among her own people while preparing their downfall, to look her family and friends in the eye while working to tear their civilization apart. "I would be honored," she lied, the words tasting like poison. That evening, Zara sat alone in her room while Vexhai attended his species' religious ceremonies. She accessed her personal files and reviewed the detailed timeline she had created for Operation Mindbreak. Phase 1 would take 15 years to establish proper infiltration networks. Phase 2 would require 30 years of careful cultural manipulation. Phase 3 would trigger the final breakdown over 5 years, 50 years total. Her little brother would be in his 70s when the invasion fleet finally arrived to claim a broken Earth. Her parents would likely be dead, spared the sight of their world's final defeat. But millions of others would live through the entire process, watching their society slowly tear itself apart without understanding why. Zara had designed the plan to minimize direct casualties. No orbital bombardment or biological weapons. Humans would destroy themselves through civil conflict, while alien manipulators pulled the strings. It was more humane than conventional invasion, she had told herself. Fewer people would die overall. But she understood now that some things were worse than death. Watching your own species lose hope and turn against each other. Seeing everything you believed about human cooperation proved false. Living in a world where trust became impossible and unity was just a memory. Her strategy would not just kill humans. It would destroy the human spirit first. As she sat in her darkened room, Zara made her final decision. She activated her personal communicator's emergency broadcast function, a feature that every cadet carried but was never supposed to use except in genuine military emergencies. This was an emergency, just not the kind the Academy had in mind. She accessed the communication array and began typing on frequencies she knew Earth monitored. Deep space telescopes and radio installations that searched for signals from alien civilizations. They would receive her message even if they did not immediately understand its importance. "This is Zara Chen. Identity verification code, Tango 7749. She broadcast on multiple frequencies. I am a human citizen. Born Vancouver, Canada. Graduated Stanford University. Currently operating under deep cover at the Galactic Military Academy. What I am about to tell you will save our species." Her hands shook as she typed, but her voice remained steady as the communicator converted text to audio transmission. Behind her door, she could hear normal dormitory sounds, students returning from evening activities, quiet conversations in various alien languages, the ordinary sounds of academy life that would end very soon for her. "Earth is not alone in the universe," she continued. "We are surrounded by a galactic civilization that has been studying us for decades. They have classified Earth as a conquest target. Invasion plans are already in motion." She transmitted everything. The Academy's real purpose as a conquest research center, the psychological manipulation strategy she had developed, the specific weaknesses in human society that alien strategists would exploit, the timeline for Operation Mindbreak and its implementation phases. Most importantly, she transmitted the knowledge that could save humanity. "The attack has already begun," she said. "Look for artificial amplification of existing social divisions. Watch for manipulation of information networks designed to prevent cooperation between different groups. Monitor economic and political pressures that seem designed to create conflict rather than solve problems." Alarms began sounding in the corridor outside her room. Security systems had detected unauthorized communications from her terminal. She had perhaps minutes before they broke down her door. "Unity is our only defense," she broadcast quickly. "Trust is our only weapon. Remember that we are stronger together than apart. Remember that someone wants us to forget that. Do not let them turn us against each other." Heavy footsteps approached her door. multiple sets moving with military precision. Zara continued transmitting even as she heard electronic locks being overridden. My name is Zara Chen. I am coming home, but I may not make it. Tell my parents I never forgot who I was. Tell my brother that the stars are full of wonders and dangers both. Tell everyone that humanity is not alone and we must be ready. The door burst open as she finished transmitting. Academy security officers flooded into her small room, weapons drawn and ready. Behind them came Professor Kethvar, his skin shifting through angry reds and betrayed purples. Cadet Chen, he said softly, please step away from the communicator. Zara stood slowly, raising her hands to show she was not resisting. For the first time in 3 years, she let her biomask slip away, revealing her true human features to the room full of aliens who had been her friends and teachers. My name is Zara Chen, she said clearly. I am a human being from Earth, and I just warned my people about what you are planning to do to them. The security officers restrained her with surprising gentleness. Professor Kethvar studied her revealed face with what seemed like genuine sadness rather than anger. 3 years, he said quietly. 3 years of excellent service and academic achievement. Why reveal yourself now when your career was just beginning? Zara met his eyes steadily. Because some things matter more than careers, Professor. Some things matter more than personal success or even personal survival. Such as, he asked. Family, Zara said simply. Home. The right of any species to determine its own future without manipulation or conquest. Professor Kethvar nodded slowly. I believe I understand. You chose loyalty to your birth species over loyalty to your adopted institution. I chose love over fear, Zara corrected. I chose hope over despair. I chose the possibility that different species can coexist without one destroying the other. As the security officers led her away, Professor Kethvar called after her. Cadet Chen, what you have done will certainly save Earth from Operation Mindbreak, but it may also ensure that conventional military conquest becomes the alternative. Zara paused at the doorway. Then humanity will face that challenge as we always have, Professor. Together, fighting for our home and our future, we would rather die as ourselves than live as slaves. The last thing she saw before they closed the detention cell door was Professor Kethvar's skin shifting to a color she had never seen before. Later, she would learn it indicated something like respect. 3 days later, as Zara sat in her cell awaiting transfer to a military tribunal, Vex High was permitted to visit her. The Serpentine being coiled nervously in the small space, his translator struggling with emotional concepts. I do not understand, he said finally. You sacrificed everything you had worked for. Your career, your future, your very freedom. For what purpose? Zara smiled for the first time since her arrest. To give my people the most important gift possible, Vex High. The knowledge that they are not alone in the universe, and the warning they need to stay free. But now Earth will be ready for us, Vex High pointed out. Your warning ensures that psychological conquest is impossible. Military conquest will be much more costly and destructive. Maybe, Zara agreed. Or maybe humans will surprise you again. Maybe knowing about the galaxy will make us stronger rather than weaker. Maybe we will find allies among species that do not believe in conquest. Maybe the future will be different than anyone expects. As Vex High left, confusion still coloring his translator's voice, Zara settled back to wait for whatever came next. She had made her choice and accepted its consequences. Earth was warned.